I really, really, really hate this idea of girl math. What the hell is girl math? Reframe the limiting beliefs you have around yourself and around money. If you constantly catch yourself saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I afford that? Being busy does not always make you money. Having conversations about money with the people in your life is so important. I think in so many cultures, for so many people, it's seen as so taboo. But why? Communication is what brings awareness, right? And awareness brings confidence, and confidence brings more relief, and it doesn't feel like this big anxiety-inducing exercise. Hi everyone, welcome to the Reclaiming Bossy podcast. My name is Mahika, and today we're going to talk about money. This month on the podcast is Money Month, and I want you to go into the summer having all the knowledge, resources, and tools to live your best life and have good spending, saving, investing habits in your personal finance and in your business. So let me give you a rundown of what's going to happen this month before we talk about this episode. This month, I'm starting with this episode where I talk about all the knowledge I've learned through the books that I've read in sorting out my personal finances and business finances. But then also we're bringing in the experts. We're going to be interviewing a VC all about venture capital and how to get funding for your business. We're going to be interviewing a financial advisor on how especially business owners can automate their personal finances, how they can have better personal finances, because it's very different when you don't receive the same amount of salary every month and there's a lot of different taxes. And then we are speaking to an accountant as well. If there's anything else you want from Money Month or Money Season, comment down below and I will get the experts for you. But I'm super, super, super excited to be speaking about this. Now, I want to talk about my own money journey. I'm 22 years old and I started my money journey at university. I am very fortunate that while I was at university, I got student loan and my parents also helped me. So I was kind of on loans and on family support. And I really, really wanted to kind of figure out how to go into the workspace with good financial habits, but I was freaked out. I've never had my own money. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have my own income. I was stressed. I also did a geography degree, so I didn't really know that much about finance. And so what I decided to do in my final year of university was to read as many financial and career books I could find and make summaries, because I'm a good reader. I'm a fast reader, essay degree baby. And I made summaries and I put them on my LinkedIn. And if you scroll way, 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 way back, you will find my Money Monday LinkedIn articles on the book summaries. So those were 12 of the best books that AI recommended for me at that time. But since then, I've read about 30 books on money, finance, and career. Now, let's do the maths. Each book is around 200, 300 pages. And if there's 30 books, that's a lot of pages. You don't have the time. So I have brought my laptop today and I'm going to tell you the main lessons I've learned to save you all those pages of reading. If you are starting out in your career journey, or if you are in the first few steps and you want to figure out your finances at whatever stage of life you're at, if you're trying to be in a more empowered position in your money, slay. Very proud of you. Well done. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I want to tell you some of the things that I've learned, and I'm going to reference what book I got it from. But if there's any books that you recommend, let me know in the comments. If there's any things that you want to know more about, let me know. Let's get started. So as I said, I started this Money Monday series when I was in my final year of university because I really wanted to know. And I really, really, really hate this idea of girl math. What the hell is girl math? It's so disempowering, and women only started to have bank accounts in the UK and the US in 1974. My mum was born in 1974. That's one generation away. So many of us are the first generation to be handling our own money. Talking about girl math and using it in a disempowering way is just it's not cool. And so girl math can be smart. Girl math can be fun. So let's talk about it. First lesson I learned was from The Psychology of Money. And it is that money is emotional, not just logical. So money is a store of value. And it's not just this physical thing. It's not paper. It's not just the amount on your bank account. You can see that by different currencies and how the same thing can be valued different amounts. Money is a store of value, but it's also a store of emotion. We form attachments to money just like we do to relationships. And I've seen so much stuff on the internet around attachment style, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. Those attachments don't just impact your attachment to people, they impact your attachment to money. Now, I am a disorganized attachment style girly, which means that for me, the cue is anxious and the response is avoidant. Now, what that means in money is that I was always very stressed. How much money am I going to make? How am I going to make money? How am I going to afford to live? But the response was avoidant. I'm not going to look at it because I'm too scared to look. I don't know what's happening. And I realized all of this was happening to me. And so slowly, how can you form a healthier attachment to money? It's the same way when you trying to change your attachment style in relationships. One of the ways you do that is you try and find secure partners. In this, you have to try and create secure money habits. And so the first lesson is that your financial life reflects your emotional patterns, not just your knowledge. So you could know all the tools in the book, but if you don't work on the emotional side of it as well, you're going to really struggle to meet your goals. So that's number one. Number two comes from the 12-week year. Now, I loved this book. The 12-week year is great. And it's this idea that we live our lives through seasons and quarters rather than years, because sometimes we don't have the visibility around our goals in a year, where we're going to be in our life, where we're going to live, how much money we're going to make. Especially if you're a business owner, you can have projections, but it's way easier to have quarterly targets as well. And so I love planning my life around 12-week business courses and seasons that tie in quite nicely to like the weather seasons as well. But within those 12-week years, I find it really useful to set a goal for my life, for my finances, for my health, and tracking. So as I mentioned, money is not just logical, and I think it's emotional. And I really struggled with tracking because I felt like that was calorie counting. It was kind of giving me this energy of being a teenage girl and on a diet again and feeling really shameful and restricted and all this stuff. But I tried tracking out of just neutrality rather than out of avoidance. And if you find it really hard to manually track, there's so many apps out there. One I started to use is called Snoop, not sponsored. It's a free app and it syncs to your bank and it just kind of tells you what categories you're spending in, but there's so many other ones. There's also one that I do manually now called Money Manager, and I do that for both my business and for my personal finances. It is so important to track it, because how can you know if you're meeting your goals and your progress if you don't know what you're doing? Also, sometimes we don't realize we're sometimes not spending money in places that we care about, and then we feel like we don't have money because we're just misallocating it. And so I think change comes from awareness, and awareness comes from tracking. So find a system that works for you. You don't have to track every single transaction if that doesn't help you. I'm in that stage right now, but there's so many tools that you can use to kind of take it off your plate and do a weekly, monthly, and quarterly check of, am I on my goals? Am I meeting my budget? Am I making my income targets? All of these kind of things. Number 3. Now, I learned this from this book called Money, the User's Guide. It is so good. It's very good for UK specific audience, but there's so many different books I can recommend in the description for different countries, whether it's India or the US or outside in the EU. But this is really good for my UK baddies that want to know how pensions work, how tax works, how all of this works. It's really detailed. The main thing that I learned from this, because I was getting really overwhelmed about saving, about investing, not knowing what accounts to put stuff in, not knowing how to kind of format my money. Rather than relying on personal discipline to save and invest, I've now automated it so that I pay myself first. I know that even when I was a student or when I was getting family support, I would get X amount of money roughly every month. And so Y amount of money is going to go into savings. And then from the savings, some of that money is going to go into investment. So what I did was I opened a savings account and I opened an ISA account, and I now every month, without thinking about it, money goes into my savings account and money goes into my ISA account. Now what I would love to do on top of that is, once I'm in a stronger position, is to add that up and make that amount higher, but it means that I don't have to rely on personal discipline to save and to invest, because it happens without me thinking about it. And as soon as the money comes in, it goes straight to the saving and investment account. So it doesn't even feel like money that I'm not allowed to spend on things that I like doing, like going to cute coffee shops or buying nice outfits or buying nice books. It just immediately goes into different things. And then within my savings account, you can have, like, depending on what your bank is, you can have different piggy banks. And I love travel. I really value travel. And so within my savings account, I've created a little piggy bank, and it auto takes some of my savings from my main saving into the travel piggy bank. Now, this sounds really complicated, but I, like I said, do not have a financial background, do not have a tech background. It took me, in both instances, around 15 minutes to set up. So pay yourself first and automate it so you don't have to even think about discipline. Oh my God, I need to save. Oh my God, I need to invest. You can start with such a small amount, £20, £30, £40, and build up. And when you do your weekly check-ins with yourself, you can check, how can I increase that amount? So that was something that really helped me. And I think that that's probably my best financial habit right now. So if you want more clarity on kind of the different types of ISAs and the different types of accounts, I really recommend Laura's guide to money. I'll link it down. Number 4 is the way you talk about money shapes your behavior. Like I said, money is not just a thing or a logical thing, it's an emotional thing. And the way that you speak about money affects how you handle it. I always had this anxiety around money. I felt like I was not very good at it or I didn't know much about it. And that also reinforces your identity. And so, how can you kind of reframe the limiting beliefs you have around yourself and around money? If you constantly catch yourself saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I afford that? Or if you think, I'm not good at money, how can I feel more confident about money? When you kind of flip it on its head, you realize that there's steps towards feeling better. And actually, you do not have to stay in the same position of anxiety, of resentment, of fear, of anger, of whatever your situation is. Number 5 is actually from Atomic Habits, which is not a financial literacy book, but I feel like this book touches every area of health, of career, of relationships, of happiness. And it's this idea around 1% changes. So with the 1% changes in career and finance, what I decided to do this year, 2026, was I started to set myself weekly homeworks. Now, these were little things that I was putting off for ages that I knew would take me into a slightly better position. Some of them were stupid little things like going and getting an Oyster card or getting a library card so I don't buy as many books or whatever. But if you can set yourself little money homeworks to break down your big goals, if you want to learn more about money, can you make yourself a little curriculum and have a homework of reading one thing a week or watching one thing a week or understanding how your accounts work or how your investments work or what you want to invest in? This is completely dependent on you. You design your own curriculum, you decide what homework you want to do. What I would recommend is actually if you can find someone that you trust to kind of talk about it. And having conversations about money with the people in your life is so important. I think in so many cultures, for so many people, it's seen as so taboo. But why? It's important to talk about it openly because communication is what brings like awareness, right? And awareness brings confidence, and confidence brings more relief, and it doesn't feel like this big anxiety-inducing exercise. So maybe you can talk about it with your friend, your mum, whatever, and you can set each other homeworks. I found this really useful. To be honest, right now I kind of set my own tasks because I know what I want to work on, but down the line I really, really want to do it in community. So comment down below if you want like money homeworks. Let me know and I'll tell you which ones I've been doing, and maybe you can start implementing these weekly changes in your life. Number 6, being busy does not make you money. Okay, so we've kind of touched on the psychology side and the spending side and the saving side. Let's talk about the income side. Being busy does not always make you money. Now, I'm a business owner and I was trying to figure out how to get more money into my business because more money into my business means more money into my account, which means, yes, I can do stuff. I initially, for the first year of my business, mistook being busy with making money and being productive and being a good business owner. I felt like I had to go to every event, to go to every meeting, I had to show up to every workshop. Now, not all of those things are going to lead to you generating revenue in your business or getting opportunity. And it's actually through developing a little bit of discernment around what's important, what moves the needle, what can actually create shifts, that you have the energy to actually make impact, both in your career and financial impact. Now, I realized that I was going to too many events because I thought at the start of my career, when I was going to events, I'd meet all these cool people, I'd make useful connections, and I would think, okay, this is really, really beneficial. But as time increased, the more events I went to, the more I realized, okay, this is becoming a bit samey. And now I need to try a different approach. And so I still go to events, but I've kind of created a little budget of how many I go to in the week so that I can still make time to work on other areas of my business. Also kind of auditing the busy work versus the other work. Now, we have a really cool episode on this podcast about strategy and the difference between working on your business and in your business. So if you're more interested in this idea, then check it out. But this is the idea that I got from my queen, Grace Beverly, and her book, Working Hard or Hardly Working. I found that book really, really interesting in terms of systems around how to work and how to design a career and a job that actually fits you as a person. So I really, really like this idea. And shout out to Grace Beverly, I love her. Okay, next thing is number 7, and it is to focus on your core competencies. You do not need to do everything. Like I said, I wore busy like a badge of honor, but busy doesn't mean efficient. Focus on your core competencies, and it's so important to know what that is. If you keep doing stuff that you hate and you're not good at and you can afford to delegate it, then you are not in the best place in your business and also in your finances. And this comes from this book called 168 Hours, which basically talks about how every single one of us has 168 hours in the week. And it kind of urges you to think about your time as a financial resource as well, and how you can leverage your time to bring more value into your career and into your life, into your health, into the areas that you care about. Kind of knowing what your core competencies are, and then linking to this, number 8, knowing what your values are. Everyone cares about different things. You can care about a lot of things, but you care about some things more, and knowing what that is will help you decide where you're willing to spend more money and where you can kind of indulge a little bit in more guilt-free spending. Like I said, for me, I love travel so much. I love travel. I love going to new places. I would rather spend more money on travel than buy a car, because I live in a city as well, or buy lots of new clothes. Like, I care more about that. And so when I look at my spending, I have to ask myself, does that reflect my values? Same with food. I love spending money on food because I am really bad at cooking. But what are ways that I can kind of bring a bit more joy into cooking and make it more balanced? And this is something that's so personal. I'm not going to tell you what to value with your money. That's a completely personal choice. But just make sure that you know what you care about and see whether that aligns with what you're spending. And okay, I understand that there's a level of privilege that comes around that, because there's so many people right now, we're in a cost of living crisis. There's so many people that are barely affording everything that they don't have time to kind of think about joy purchases and everything. But it's important to still know what your money values are, because if you are ever to leave that position, you want to know that you're kind of spending in accordance to the life that you care about. Now, this links to the next one, which is setting boundaries around money. So once you know your values, you know what you don't care that much about and what you're not willing to spend that much on. And it's kind of good to sit down with yourself and know, what are your boundaries around money? How much are you willing to spend in different areas of your life? This is a more holistic way of making a budget. I found kind of randomly costing things out wasn't really working for me. And I have certain things in my budget that are more in one area of life than maybe they could be, and less in another, because I care more about certain stuff. And with the boundaries, it's more around like, what do you really not want to invest your money in? This is important because, as I said, we find it really hard to talk about money. And so knowing this means that you're in a way better position to talk about money when you don't want to spend on something, or you can't spend on something, or you don't want to give someone a loan, or you don't want to share something for whatever reason. It's really important to know the values first before you can set the boundaries. Now, the next point is courage in conversations increases income. As I said, the more we speak about money, the more we gain awareness, and the more awareness we gain, the more confidence we gain. Now, this links back to income as well, because if you don't know what you should be charging in your business, what you should be asking for when you're going for a job interview around salary because you're too scared to talk about it, then you might be undervaluing your time, your energy, your work, your labor. And so it's really important to kind of have open conversations around money and around careers. And that's exactly why I decided to make this podcast episode, because I find it really scary and intimidating. I think both being Indian and British, growing up, kind of talking about money was seen as a little bit like rude. And so I really, really think that this is very important. And having a circle of people that you can talk about it to, or curating a digital circle. Now there's online platforms. You can listen to podcasts, you can listen to YouTubers, you can listen to TV shows, read books. You can curate your kind of inner circle or like board of advisors around money, around careers, around different areas of your life, even if you don't feel like you have the right people around you. This links to the next point of your environment shapes your income. Now, this idea is talked about all the time, but I explored it in this book called We Need to Talk About Money. And it is this idea that you are the average of the people you surround yourself with. Because not only, like I said before, the conversations you have are the conversations that are normalized in your life, and so the ideas and the thoughts that are normalized in your life. But I feel like the people around you kind of set a threshold of what's possible. And so if you're not sure what's possible for you, but then you surround yourself with people that inspire you, motivate you, and talk about their goals openly and honestly, then it makes it more possible for you. So how can you shape your environment to shape the income, the lifestyle, the career that you want? This is something that's taught across all of the books that I've read. And it's something that I see as really important. And as I said, kind of curating that online is as important as offline. Sometimes we're limited by where we live. You might live somewhere really remote. You might not have the privilege of living in certain places where you're entering these social circles. But if you are watching this, first of all, thank you for taking that step, because you're already doing this. You're curating your environment digitally and what you consume. That is the biggest step. Then I think for me, what's worked the most is, as I said, setting clear goals and tracking, and then also automating what I can so I don't have to think about it all the time. Now, when we make it about our hard work or our discipline or our lack of discipline, it makes it really, really, really hard to be in a strong position. I'm saying this as someone who's starting out. As I mentioned, I'm 22. I'm not in the position that I would want to be according to the vision board, but I'm working on it. And so if you're working on it too, then come join me. Let's do it together. Stay tuned for money season because it's going to be epic. I really want to know what you want to hear and what you want to learn more about. We're going to learn together. Come join this bossy corner of the internet. Thank you for being part of this. Let me know what your book recommendations are, if there's anything you want to add to the list. Yeah, have a fabulous rest of your week. Bye, guys.